Narcissists are truly peculiar and incredibly unpleasant individuals when you've got one or more in your life. Why don't narcissists get help? Lots of the ladies that come to see me say, I wish he'd sort himself out. I wish he'd come and see you, Matt, instead of me. Do you know what? That is a losing battle, because anybody who's encountered a narcissist will tell you they are never wrong, or so they believe. And where does that come from? Ultimately, look at them, if this helps you to change your perspective, look at them as frightened little boys. Not all narcissists are men. Believe you me. Believe you me. Us men just get a bad press, but that's okay. Look at narcissists as scared, insecure little boys or girls. Okay, they lack empowerment in their own lives for whatever reason. Maybe it's as a result of bad things that have happened to them. I'm not justifying their behaviour, because this video isn't for the narcissist. It's for people who may have encountered them. We encounter them all over the place. People who have these amazing complexes where they're full of their own glory. We see it a lot in the workplace, the regular day-to-day workplace. People who are so swelled with their own importance and every idea they have is right. So let's look at that. Why do people argue? This is relevant. Why do people argue? Well, if somebody says to me, Matt, the earth is flat. Deep breath. What comes out next? Oh, okay. Because what that person really wants is to validate their position that the earth is flat, or that is the best shampoo, or whatever else, by getting you to agree. People are tribal. If somebody can get you to agree with their position, or in the case of a narcissist, if somebody can get you to submit to their position, that's even more dangerous. They're not just trying to get you to agree, they're trying to get you to comply, they're trying to get you to submit because they feel empowered. But for most people, an argument or grinding an axe, like all this absolute garbage on Facebook at the moment, where everyone has an opinion, and look, I must be right because I've found a video on YouTube that says it's right. They're validating their own position. Lots of arguments are about insecurity. Think about that. Lots of arguments are about insecurity. So somebody has an idea in their head. They're not particularly confident in themselves. They're not particularly empowered in their life. So they latch on to whatever bandwagon is passing. They find a YouTube video that says they're correct. You can find anything if you look. And then they start spreading that idea. And God forbid, goodness forbid, you ever say to that person, that's crazy, or I disagree, or, because that is adding fuel to their fire. So the answer is, it's on social media, scroll past. Scroll past. You've learned something today. Use it to your advantage. Now, let's go back to narcissists. One of the things is lots of the ladies that I see are carrying significant scars. I'm not downplaying it. They are carrying significant trauma from their life with the narcissist. It's not difficult to get rid of it, but one of the things that we often have to work on is accepting that, you know what, it's happened. You're not with that person. They've moved to Timbuktu. The kids are grown up. It doesn't affect them now, thankfully. All this sort of thing. You're no longer financially dependent on that person, or share a house, or live in the same country, or anything. So, what's really important for us to heal ourselves is that we stop, this is a little bit blunt, but we stop grinding our axe over what's happened. Yes, it's wrong. Yes, it is an awful injustice. No, it isn't your fault. To a greater or lesser degree, it isn't the fault of the narcissist either. It's something wrong in their past or their makeup that's made them like that. I'm not defending the narcissist. We all have free choice. So if you've come out of the aftermath of that kind of situation, there's two ways to look at it. One is keep churning it over in your head. You haven't got a time machine. You can't change it. You can't. You absolutely cannot change what has gone. So the first thing to do is just park that somewhere. It's done. And then look at, and this is going to sound cheesy, but look at the reality, look at the silver lining that you've got, the benefits to your life now of not being with that person, the things that you have learned from having been through that rotten experience, the patterns that you won't repeat, the kind of person that you won't fall for again. So that brings you peace. Do you know that? That is what brings you peace. How did Dorothy get back to Kansas? She clicked her own heels. Nobody did it for her. So click your heels. Park that stuff. Learn from it. Take the lessons forward, but leave the bitterness. Leave that bitter taste that it's left you with in the past. Leave it where it is. And the more you work on your own acceptance of yourself, I'm not asking you to accept and agree to what's happened. I'm not. Don't misunderstand me. When we accept ourselves, when we open ourselves up and kind of remember who we are, because narcissists distort our whole lives, our whole existence. We forget who we are. We forget how to laugh. We forget how to have free choice. We forget how to wear the clothes that we want to wear, eat the food that we want to eat. It's an all-pervasive thing, narcissism, when you're on the receiving end. So remember who you are. Think about who you are. And along the way, what you'll find when you start this process, because you've been practicing for so many years, thinking about or dwelling on that stuff in the past, your mind will wander back to it. When it does, stop it. Stop that thought process. Just say to yourself, hang on, I'm going down that road again. Save this conversation for another day. Leave it for the day. Come back to it the next day. It's a really powerful way of, and this is an overused word, but it's a really powerful way of healing yourself. Remembering who we are is incredibly powerful because it defines every day for the rest of our lives after that moment. It's a big statement, that, isn't it? But it does, because at that moment we're no longer chained to our learned negative thoughts, our learned negative behaviours, our thought patterns, etc., etc. Now, let's get slightly controversial. Let's look at why we attract a narcissist. Often, it's just because you're a really nice person and you're a really giving person. And a narcissist will spot that from 1,000 miles away because they know, because they're shallow and fickle and weak-minded and exploitative. What a weird combination. They spot that nice, giving, warm, loving, compassionate, generous person. That's their perfect match. That is their perfect match. So think about those things. Think about being warm. Think about being loving. Think about being compassionate. Think about all those things. But instead of applying them blindly or with a blanket to the rest of the world around you, not saying stop being a nice person, but instead of applying that compassion, that love, that nurture, that generosity, that warm, open heart of yours, instead of applying it to everybody else on the planet or everybody else around you, giving, apply it to yourself first. You know that old saying, you can't help anybody else unless you're helping yourself. Doing and giving to and for somebody else is a bad thing if, in that process, you're not maintaining your own well-being. Accept, remember who you are, accept what's done and gone, acknowledge that you can't go back, you can't undo it, but also recognise, the other side of that mirror, also recognise that you're not going to do it again, that you know more than you did. Because people who don't learn the lessons, people who don't accept, often, this is going to sound painfully familiar to some of you, will often go from one not very good relationship to the next, 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 and eventually come and see me and say, yeah, I've been through this string of bad relationships, men are all the same, etc., etc. Men are not all the same. Maybe the men that you are attracting because you're incomplete. There's holes in you and there's holes in them, but somehow the holes fit. But ultimately, that kind of thing, it's a ticking time bomb, isn't it? As we all find out going through life, it's a ticking time bomb. So when you accept who you are, you remember how to respect yourself, to put yourself first, to be stronger. It comes naturally. Being stronger, being more determined, being more single-minded and focused on yourself isn't something that you should have to try at. It isn't. Right, I'm going to be strong today. That's just creating another battle for yourself. Don't swap one battle for another. So it comes full circle back to, and I could say this a million times, stop and remember who you are or who you were, and don't go down the rabbit hole. When you're thinking about how happy you were 10 years ago before you met that him or her, don't think about the 10 years that you've lost, the 10 years that you've wasted. Just draw the line, close the door on that room, because going down that rabbit hole is never going to make you complete, is it? Remember how Dorothy got back to Countess. She clicked her own heels. She'd made her awful journey. She'd learnt things along the way. She grew. She realised all she needed to do was click her heels. That is how easy it can be. There's no reason for it to be complicated. It takes time. How do you work on yourself? Give yourself 5 or 10 minutes a day where you do nothing, where you put your phone on silent, where you get off blooming Facebook. Give yourself 5 or 10 minutes a day where all you do is you sit, you close your eyes, and you think about nothing. Because what you're doing there, you're training your mind back to being complete. It's that easy. But 99% of the people that watch this video who've got something in their life that they don't like won't do it. Why? Because I've asked you to give up 5 or 10 minutes a day for the next few weeks. So invest in yourself. If you invest 5 or 10 minutes, you can change pretty much anything or everything if you've been through all that negative stuff. If you spent 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, 2 years going through a string of bad relationships or a bad relationship, is it a big ask, really, for me to say to you, well, you can get past that. You just need to give yourself 5 or 10 minutes a day. It's not, is it? But it means doing something for yourself. But believe me, once you get a few days in and you start to feel the benefits, you start to realise how calm you are, how clear your thoughts are, how bridled you are by all that stuff, and how you're actually, do you know what, Matt was right, I'm leaving that stuff behind now. I'm starting to feel happy. I'm starting to remember who I am. That next version of you is tremendous. It's true. There you go. For anything else, because there are things we can't resolve for ourselves, if you've been through a lot of trauma, or if it's really got to the point where you don't feel that you can unravel it, that's why people like me exist. There you go. So either way, don't stay stuck. I hope this has helped. I'll speak to you soon.